Hey everyone, and welcome back to Digitally Twisted Media. Today we get to take a look at, once again, one of my favorite band songs, my favorite band of all time. But the new song, The Red Baron. Now, The Red Baron is about Baron Manfred von Richtofen, who was known as, like we had said earlier, the Red Baron, the great German imperial ace, just shooting everyone down and going crazy. But most interesting part about him is that in reality, he was quite an amazing leader. He really was able to get groups of men and follow, build them up, and create lots of great ace pilots under his command. Now, he was born in 1892, and unfortunately, he perished in 1918. He didn't live very long, but even for such a young man, he had great leadership experience and also tactics and techniques. Now, he entered into the war originally as part of a cavalry regiment where his regiment saw action in the eastern and in the western fronts, and he even earned the Iron Cross for his bravery. However, if anyone knows much about World War I, cavalry regiments kind of went out of style a little bit, and eventually his regiment kind of got pushed back and it was just relegated to supply tasks, which our buddy Richtofen, he wasn't about that life. So he even wrote to his high command. If anyone's ever been in the military, that's pretty ballsy to just write a letter straight to your high command. Thankfully, it worked for him. But the funny part is that he told his high command that he did not join the war to go serve cheese and eggs to the front lines. And lucky for him, he decided he wanted to go into the aerial dogfighting or aerial reconnaissance, which is where he was sent. And thankfully, he was able to earn enough combat experience fighting over Russia and France, and was actually eventually noticed by a German ace by the name of Belke. Now, Belke, people were kind of at first wondering why he saw so much, potential within young Richtofen, because at the time, he didn't really have that much experience, and it's said that he actually ended up crashing his first combat aircraft, which would be pretty embarrassing. But nevertheless, Belke took him under his wing and developed him better until he actually became an ace himself. And unfortunately, Belke would soon die not long after that. But Belke's lessons and the potential he saw in Richtofen were not unfounded, as eventually Richtofen built up such a prestige and so many kill counts that he was actually eventually given his command of his own Jasta, which was Jasta 11. And during the bloody month of April of 1917, they got quite a bit of kills, about 89 total if I remember correctly. And I believe Richtofen did 2021, I'm not entirely sure. But the point being is, as I mentioned earlier at the beginning of this video, is that the Red Baron wasn't really known just only for his ace skills. He was also known as being a fantastic leader. He developed all the men under his command to be excellent pilots. And the reasoning behind it was he didn't really want them to go off and do crazy daring stunts. Instead, he wanted to work as a tight, coordinated team to isolate and wipe out the enemy one by one. Hence, their effective kill status. Now, let's take a look at this song, and then we'll talk about towards the end of Richtofen's life. Ready? Let's do this.
High above the blood and mud of the battlefields, there was another war going on. A war for superiority in the air between the daredevils of the sky, known as the Aces. Among them, one man and his plane stand out. The Red Baron.
Man and machine and nothing there in between. The flying circus and the man from Russia. The sky in a plane, this man commands his domain. The western frontier all the way to Russia. Death from above, you're under fire. Stay red as blood, it's roaming higher. Born a soldier from the horseback to the skies. That's where the legend will arise. And he's flying higher, the king of the sky. He's flying too fast and he's flying too high. Higher, an eye for an eye. The legend will never die. First to the scene, he's a lethal machine. He's not the April and the tide is turning. Fire the whale, it's the thrill of the kill. Flying the nation down with engines burning. Embrace the flame, red squadron leader. Call out his name, Protector Flieger. In the game to win, the gambler rolls the dice. he's flying, and he's flying, and he's flying higher. The king of the sky, he's flying too fast and he's flying too high. Higher, an eye for an eye, the legend will never die. Higher, the king of the sky, he's flying too fast and he's flying too high. Higher, an eye for an eye, the legend will never die.
Woo! That was good. Oh, we got something here. Fight on and fly to the last drop of blood and the last drop of fuel, to the last beat of the heart. I never heard that quote from him. Wow. Now, it was not as heavy as metal as Sabaton is normally known for. It was kind of like a little... it's almost arcadey. But if I remember correctly, Joachim said he wanted to do something different for this. I think he said punk rock, if I remember correctly. You can let me know down in the comments if I'm incorrect. But he said he was wanting to do something different, which is fair because he's been doing Sabaton for a very long time. And I can only imagine Sabaton would not have gone as far as they had without him. So it's different. I don't dislike it, but it doesn't really get me moving like the Bismarck did. Bismarck was like, wow, heavy power metal about a heavy power metal battleship. But enough of that. This one was a good song, but I kind of felt like they could have added more about the history of him. I did like how they talked about how he went from fighting on horseback to flying in the skies. He's flying too fast and he's flying too high, higher. That song will be stuck in my head for a while, I guarantee you that much. But it's really good to know that he kind of gets a little more attention this way, because again, a lot of people don't know much about him, and I kind of feel like a lot of the old heroes of the old days are kind of dying off and fading away. Now, I'm a U.S. citizen, okay, so it's not exactly like we're taught about like German war heroes or any European war heroes for that matter. Mostly Greek mythology, if anything. And unfortunately, I don't really know much about U.S. fighting aces from back then. But enough about that. Okay, so the Red Baron, he was mostly known for his giant, like his flying aircraft. I believe it was a tri-wing plane. Again, I'm not an expert World War I planes, so suffer with me here. I believe the last one he had was the Fokker 1. That's F-O-K-K-E-R, YouTube. So you can go kick rocks if you do something bad to my channel. The Fokker. Anyways, so... Sorry, lost my discipline there. But hey, so... It was a if I remember, it was a good plane, but again, he was not known for crazy stunts. He was known for cold, calculated maneuvers and utilizing his squadron together, and he taught them to fight like that. Now, it's interesting, the flying circus, I believe, was mentioned in the lyrics. So him and his men, they painted their planes all sorts of colors so that people would be able to identify them. Because in World War I, as anyone who's seen World War I footage, including new colored ones, it's really dark and dreary. So they wanted to get noticed from the ground because, it's propaganda. They were like the knights of the sky. They were like the heroes, the celebrities, okay? Heck, even pilots today are still kind of looked up to. But his purpose also was tactical as well, so his men knew where he was at all times, hence his significant colored red. No one else had the red color. And he also had them like different color coordinates, so the enemy knew who they're dealing with too. And the flying circus had a reputation, a feared reputation amongst enemy. During the bloody April of 1917, they killed I think I said earlier, it was 89 enemies, and then Richtofen wiped out 21. So he was quite the fighter pilot. But again, not just because he was an amazing pilot, because he was an amazing leader that built up his men. And I really respected him for that because he kind of put his men first. However, he was not invincible. If I remember correctly, and I think about a year before he passed away, I think, let's say it was July 1917, he got grazed by a bullet in his head and it fractured his skull. He went back to the hospital. He went to the hospital, obviously, and the command wanted him to stay there, but he was like, no, I got to get back, So they had to hold him, keep him down on lockdown so he didn't go wandering off. Eventually, he did go out. And that's something to respect. A leader doesn't just hide in the back, behind a desk, having everyone else just go off and die for him. He was out there in the front lines wanting to fight a fight. Problem is, because he didn't really let himself heal, that wound did affect him. And we believe that when he finally did perish, I don't remember the exact date right now, but I believe it was in 1918, or it wasn't long after he got back to his men. He started to isolate himself more and more and more, and possibly historians think maybe show signs of PTSD. I mean, just from the adrenaline to push, 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 and it's the drain of war happens to all of us. But he did something weird. After he got his 80th kill, the next day he went out with his flying circus. They went to go fight, and then they reported that he just started chasing after an Australian scout plane. And again, this was seen as a rookie move, something that didn't make any sense, especially from somebody that specifically has his men and trained them to stick together in tight coordinated groups and destroy and wreak havoc on the enemy. He was chased down by an Australian aerial corps pilot by Captain Brown, who was known as ace pilot within his own Australian aerial corps. And he shot him from behind and shot him down. He crash landed, unfortunately, and he was killed from a bullet wound, they said, up to his heart. There's even a picture of it, unfortunately. And his plane was picked apart, but the Australian Aerial Corps did go and give him full military honors, and even the Australian officers from the Aerial Corps came and made sure he got a proper burial, proper funeral, procession, all of that. I mean, he was honored as a war hero on the Allied side when he was fighting for the Axis, which is very respectable for both sides. And the German High Command wanted to know more and more about what was going on with him, and finally they got the information, his location was buried, and that he received full military honors when he was buried by the enemy, which is, again, to me, is fantastic. And the ugly brutalities of war, every once in a while we still have some civility and decency. But thanks for stopping by, guys. We'll see you next time.